Is Nvidia adding a backdoor into the graphic chips they are selling to China? Welcome to another KuLAB. My name is Ku. This is our laboratory for learning. Today we're going to look at an article about Chinese summoning the representatives of Nvidia to China to talk about whether or not there's security concerns with their chips. So let's start this business news breakdown by jumping in to another KuLAB. Okay, like always, I like to attribute the author. So today we're going to be thanking Eleanor Alcott. Let's start with our headline. China summons Nvidia over serious security issues with chips. Our subheading, meeting comes as U.S. semiconductor giant seeks to revive sales in the country. So we're going to be talking about Nvidia being allowed to sell chips in China again, but China having some concerns about maybe a backdoor or something happening with the chips and making sure that it's not a security concern for China. Beijing has summoned Nvidia over alleged security issues with its chips in a blow to the U.S. company's push to revive sales in the country after Washington granted approval for the export of a made-for-China chip. Let's take a look at a few of these words. Let's look at the words summoned here. Summon means to officially call or officially ask for someone to meet with you. In this case, China is asking to have an official meeting with the representatives from Nvidia. So alleged in this sentence means to claim without proof. So the Chinese government are saying they think there is a security issue, or they are saying there is a security issue, but right now there isn't any proof. They are summoning Nvidia to discuss this issue. We also have an idiom here, in a blow to. In a blow to means something that has a negative impact. If there's a blow to something, it means something has happened that is a disadvantage, or something is wrong, something bad has happened. We have revive sales. To revive means to make it alive again. So it's a very medical term. To revive someone means that they were very close to death or maybe even dead, and we brought them back to life. So this is saying there were no sales in China, and they're trying to revive those sales. This has to do with the United States export issues, some of the laws that were made regarding export of Nvidia products, and so they are trying to revive those sales. After Washington granted approval for the export of a made-for-China chip. So Washington in this case is the United States. So oftentimes when we talk about governments, we will talk about the capital of the government. In this case, Beijing being China, and Washington is actually short for Washington, D.C. It's a little bit confusing in the United States because there is a state called Washington, but usually in these articles or business journals, when you see the word Washington, it's referring to Washington, D.C., which of course is the capital of the United States, and often just referred to as Washington, and it means the government of the United States. The Cyberspace Administration of China requested that Nvidia explain the security problems associated with the H20 chip, which was designed for the Chinese market to comply with U.S. export restrictions, and submit documentation to support their case. The announcement comes as Nvidia is rebuilding its China business after Washington this month lifted a ban on H20 sales to the country. So this doesn't have a ton of business vocabulary, but let's talk about this idea of the H20 chip. Currently in the United States, there is a ban on selling AI chips to China so that China can't use U.S. technology, Nvidia, to create weapons and things of that nature. So they have a specially designed chip that is not as powerful as some of the other AI chips or some of the other chips that Nvidia has. And that less powerful chip is called the H20 chip. So that is the chip that is allowed to be sold to China. So when it says designed for the Chinese market to comply with U.S. export restrictions, our export restrictions here are any laws or regulations on the type of product or the quality of the product that can be exported. In this case, there is a benchmark on how good the chip can be from Nvidia that is sold to China. So that level that meets those requirements, Nvidia has named the H20 chip. The announcement comes as Nvidia is rebuilding its China business after Washington, the US government, this month lifted a ban on H20 sales to the country. So earlier this month there was no sales of Nvidia chips to China, just weren't allowed to. And then there was a trade deal signed with China. So Nvidia could sell these chips now to China. China will give the United States some rare earth materials. So that part of that deal allowed Nvidia to continue to sell these H20 chips. After Washington's U-turn, Nvidia chief executive visited Beijing to meet officials and customers. He stressed his company's commitment to the Chinese market and introduced a new graphics processing unit based on the latest Blackwell series that is tailored to align with existing U.S. export controls. You can look at the word U-turn. U-turn means to turn around. It's used in traffic or when you're driving a car. So a U-turn means I was going one direction and now I'm going the other direction. And this is in reference to the U.S. government saying no chips could be sold to China, and now saying, okay, some chips can be sold to China. So they did a U-turn. They're now going in the other direction. He introduced a new graphics processing unit based on the latest Blackwell series. So the Blackwell series is Nvidia's most powerful chip. And since they can't sell that chip to China, they made a new unit. Graphics processing unit is GPU. So graphics processing unit here is GPU. So when you see GPU, that's what it stands for. Because it has to align with existing US export controls. Align with means it has to agree with, or it has to meet. It has to meet those existing US export controls. So they can't sell anything more powerful. So they've created this new chip. China tech expert and partner at DGA Albright Stonebridge Group said he was skeptical about the claims of a deliberate backdoor being built into Nvidia hardware, pointing to the lack of detail in the announcement. So this person here is saying that he is skeptical. Skeptical means he doesn't quite believe it. There is not enough evidence for this person to believe it. He doesn't believe there is a deliberate backdoor built into the Nvidia hardware. So this is saying some people in China don't think there is a security concern. Some people do. So this is one of the people who is skeptical of there being a security concern. The CAC did not specify which experts had found a backdoor into Nvidia's products or whether any tests in China had uncovered the same results. So this is saying the Chinese government didn't say which experts found a backdoor. In this case, backdoor, just so we're aware, means adding in some special code or some special thing which allows the manufacturer of the product to manipulate the product after it's been sold. So once you get, in this case, a graphics processing unit chip, the manufacturer, Nvidia, still might be able to access this chip. They might be able to do some things with this chip that could be a security concern. Cybersecurity is critically important to us, company spokesperson said. Nvidia does not have backdoors in our chips that would give anyone a remote way to access or control them. So Nvidia is saying, listen, we don't do this. This isn't something we do. Cybersecurity is critically important to us. Critically meaning it's the most important. If something is critical, it's at the highest level of importance. China is saying, we think we found a backdoor. Nvidia said there are no backdoors. So this is pretty common, like I just said, in this sort of electronic industry, when you're trying to get the most powerful electronics. And if they come from countries that are adversaries meaning they don't like each other, or they're maybe fighting each other, whether in open battle or something like that, then there are always security concerns. Lawmakers in Washington have expressed concern about chip smuggling and introduced a bill that would require chip makers such as Nvidia to embed location tracking into export-controlled hardware. So this paragraph really talks about what I think is the issue. This idea of smuggling, right? This means taking illegal things into a country. So something that is not allowed by the country, sneaking it into the country. So when you smuggle something. To embed means to add it as part of the product. What this paragraph is saying is that the US government has said you cannot sell the very high-end products, the Blackwell series. You must sell the H20 series. What's happening is they think that some people are smuggling in the higher quality Nvidia chip into China. The US government has told Nvidia to put location tracking on the high quality chip so they can see where it is, so they can make sure none of it is ending up in China. Since it's illegal to have those chips in China, the US government has told Nvidia to make sure they know where those high-end chips are. So embed location tracking in those chips. China is saying, hey, there's a backdoor even in the chips that are allowed to be sold. So the H20 chips. Beijing has issued informal guidance to major Chinese tech groups to increase purchases of domestic AI chips in order to reduce reliance on Nvidia and support the evolution of a rival domestic chip ecosystem. When you offer guidance means this is something that you should do. The government is saying, Chinese manufacturers should do this. To increase purchases of domestic AI chips. Domestic means from the local country. So if you take a domestic flight, you are flying from one point in the country to another point in the same country. Domestic food, domestic cheese means it's cheese that was made in the country it's from. So the Chinese government is telling the Chinese tech companies, buy AI chips made in China. So we don't have to be reliant. Reliant means we need something. If you are reliant or have reliance on something, it means you need that thing to be good. You need that thing to survive. And so they don't want to be reliant on Nvidia, which is a United States-based company. And so they are trying to create their own chips. The Trump administration has faced heavy criticism, including from security experts and former officials who argue that the H20 sales would accelerate Chinese AI development and threaten U.S. national security. People in the United States are saying we should not sell any chips to China because it will accelerate their development and threaten U.S. national security. Accelerate here means to speed up. So speed up Chinese AI development. So there are still some issues between the United States and China in terms of who can get the best AI the fastest. And so Nvidia is in the middle because the Nvidia chips right now are the fastest. They're the best chips to use for AI development. So the United States is worried that China might develop AI at a faster pace, and China is worried that Nvidia, a United States company, is embedding backdoors into their chips, and that also could be a security concern. We'll have to see how this all works out, but a fantastic article. All right, thanks for joining this KuLAB. An interesting article about two nations talking about security concerns and how that might impact the future of Nvidia. We learned about the H20 model and how it differs from the other chips and things like backdoor and security concerns. So I hope you learned something. If you enjoyed it, hit that like and subscribe button and definitely join us again for another KuLAB.